several Facebook pages and YouTube. And so they all sort of light up at the same time. So I typically, do a little tap dance like I'm doing right now, just to sort of fill that time while they're going live. But we are live now on social media. And so if you're watching us on YouTube and you want to get these interviews in the future, like and subscribe, you know the drill. I am excited about today's guest, but I do have to silence my cell phone first so people don't bother me. And this is just a note for the editor that we haven't started yet. And we're going to start in just a moment here. Invicta Fighting Championships president and owner, Shannon Knapp, worked with top organizations in mixed martial arts for 15 years, including IFL, Strikeforce, and UFC, before launching a new mixed martial arts women's league. And I am excited to have her with us today on the Earn Media podcast. Shannon, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Now, before we get into your background and how you built women's mixed martial arts into a sports league, tell us about Invicta 44.
All right. Well, we do have a show coming up tomorrow night. It's a very exciting show. It's headlined by 2 title fights. So that always, when there's a belt on the line, that's always a lot of fun, exciting action. But we'll be airing live on Access Television, plus across all the social media platforms. So no matter where you are, you're going to have the opportunity to watch this show. And that's, kind of our way of giving back to the fans and making sure that everybody has that opportunity.
Okay, so I have DirecTV.
Okay.
Do I have access?
I believe you do. If you have DirecTV, you do have access.
So it's a regular channel. It's included with Everybody Gets It.
Yeah, to my knowledge, yes, that is correct.
And so, then if I want to watch it on social media, how do I do that?
On social media, you'll go to our YouTube page, or you'll also be able to watch on Facebook, our Facebook page, or Twitter. So you'll have multiple opportunities and options.
What's the YouTube page? What's the URL for the YouTube page?
Okay, I will have them post that up if that's all right. I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay, you're not sure. But if I just go to YouTube and I search Invicta Fighting Championships.
Yes, and it will pop up.
Okay.
Well, also, we can post the link for the fans too as well.
Now, tell us, what is the size of mixed martial arts compared to boxing?
Size. Well,
is it a bigger industry?
I think it depends on who you talk to. If you're talking to somebody from boxing, they're always going to say that boxing is still bigger, and I think it's going to go the same way if you're speaking to someone that comes from the MMA side. I think it's just a varied opinion. I have my opinion. My opinion is that I believe that boxing is coming back around, but I do believe there has been a period of time that MMA was slightly more elevated. I think with the opportunities on broadcasting.
And can you give me just some sense of how big the MMA community is from a dollar standpoint or a fan standpoint?
Well, I think if you want to look at that, I think the best thing to gauge would be when, William Morris, bought the UFC and what that figure looked like. You were talking $4 billion. I mean, I think that kind of gives you an example or a range of where that really sits in the grand scheme.
Got it. Okay, so UFC was bought for $4 billion plus by William Morris.
That is, yeah, that's the number that's out there for sure.
Yeah, big money.
Big money.
How long? You have a long history working in MMA, which we'll get to later. But I want to know, how do you launch a sports league? I mean, that seems like a very daunting, process. What are the sequence of events that you went through to make it happen?
I think definitely for me, and I can only speak to me, it was, finding something that I was passionate about, but that there was a need for someone to come in and do something that contributed to the betterment for, the athletes that are competing. So for me, it was that's the whole reason that I decided to start one, is because when I did start Invicta, the women weren't getting the opportunities, nor there wasn't that type of interest for the women competing in the sport. So, in marketing, you identified that there was a need, and then I felt like I was the right person to fulfill that, need, come in and do something about it. So. when it comes to, it was starting out with having the desire, of course, and then just kind of laying it out, deciding, all the things that you do when you're going to start a business, finding the name, what was the message, why are you doing this, how are you going to promote it, how are you going to launch it, it's going to be an uphill climb, because if it was going to be a popular idea, everybody would be doing it, so, just looking at everything and trying to put that plan together, but just knowing that you have the passion to drive it, and for me, that's really what it was all about.
I launched a SaaS software company
Mhm.
years ago, and I remember, it was sweat equity and we bootstrapped. And I remember, when we signed Target stores as a customer, we were real at that point. Is
Yeah.
there something, is there any like one event that you can think of when you were building the league where like, oh man, this is it, we're real now?
That one moment, huh? Uh, yeah, maybe that one moment was, when I first saw our numbers for the very first time. We had, I went with Marketing 101. We gave it away for free the first year of the business. So it was out there on the internet, and you could access it no matter where you were at. And the first time to actually see those numbers, it was very much a surprise. I don't know that it signified that we were there by any means, but it certainly signified that we're onto something. There is an audience for this. Now, what am I going to do to harness all that and make sure that we get those repeat numbers again? Only keep trying to climb and go higher.
Can you tell us about the numbers? I mean, what were those numbers that got you excited? What does it take to get you excited that, oh my God, wow, we've got an audience here?
Sadly, here's the sad part about this story, is that you're excited when you see these numbers. I mean, under a couple 100,000, but they were up there in that range, and you're just excited because it's not really about you. It's about, oh my gosh, look what these women just did, that kind of a feeling. And I mistakenly made, I said them out loud, and, it caused kind of like people just didn't believe it, because they were so good. So I always said to myself, I'm never going to talk about those numbers again, because it really took away the impact of what, should have been happening. Everybody's so excited for these women, but it got down to this thing about, well, we're not telling the truth about those numbers. But, we hired a company from outside that did the streaming. And then I was kind of indicated back later when, we crashed the paywall servers at Ustream. We crashed a lot of paywall servers over the period of time from our traffic. So then it kind of, everything evened out. But I mean, the first one, it was 179,000. That's what, and they were unique visits. They weren't, because this is on the internet. This is where we're born and raised. So, yeah. So just to watch those numbers and watch them grow, over a period of time and even be higher than that. And we're on the internet. It was kind of amazing.
When you say, you were sort of looking at women's mixed martial arts and you saw that you needed to do something to make it for the betterment of the competitors, and you saw an opportunity, what was missing before you launched your league, and what did your league bring to the table that was new?
Consistency. I call them weekend gardeners. Okay. Nobody was really willing to get in there and really tend to this, organize it, create divisions, build depth in these divisions. Most of the time what we were seeing mismatch fights. I mean, I certainly don't have an appetite for that. I don't want to see one person, just get pummeled to death and, in the ring or the cage, and it's not a fair fight. So you were seeing women that were competing several weight classes up outside of what their normal range would be. And then, people didn't like it. I didn't like it. It took me, I'm kind of a traditionalist and old school. I came up on the male side of the sport. So when I was first approached by them wanting me to make female matchups, it was never like, Shannon, we want to do this and get out there and find the best of the best. Never. I mean, they approached me. It was always about hot girls, hot MMA girls. It was never about, what it should be about. So, I kind of had carried that with me, a little bit of that distaste, because, here I have these guys, blood, sweat, and tears over here. And, they want me to put on, what I'm going to consider a sideshow, something that's not really true to the essence of the sport or the athlete and things like that. So, I mean, they changed my mind. Women changed my mind. I had the ability, opportunities when I was at Strikeforce to really, look at what these women were doing to compete. And, I earned a very healthy respect for that. So with that being said, then I felt like they gave me the tools I needed to go out and change everybody else's mind. And that's where Invicta kind of, started.
Um, you have new partners on board.
Yes.
You did a deal with Anthem Sports and Entertainment based in Los Angeles and Toronto. They have a very impressive board. How do you see Mark Cuban and Steve Harvey being part of your growth at Invicta?
Well, I think they're both very intelligent, very smart businessmen. I think that their ability to identify things too that can only make it better overall, is what I'm looking forward to. I mean, Mark owns a sports league himself, so it's, I think the contributions that they bring, and the ideas. I love that part.
Um, you remember, what happened with Steve Harvey and the announcement of the winner for Miss America. Was it Miss America, or Miss World, or something like that? Do you remember that when he made a mistake and misread the? Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
No, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't speak for him, but I can't imagine.
Because he did a 3-year deal right after that to host it.
I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine that would be the case, but it's certainly something, that he would have to speak to.
Right, right. What does your partnership with Anthem mean to you personally and for the sport in general?
Well, for me personally, it's the first time since I started Invicta that, I have a partner like that brings these type of assets to the table. I mean, to have that kind of support and for them to be as ambitious as I am, and us to talk about other genres of combat under the brand. I mean, it's a very exciting time, very exciting. So for me, that's personal. But what it really does for the sport is it really changes the game and the opportunities for the women once again to have a partner like Anthem, to have the broadcast platforms and just have that wealth of experience that'll surround us. That's huge. I mean, it's a game changer.
Do you see an opportunity for any sort of synergy with Anthem to grow, not just the Invicta brand, but also women's mixed martial arts as a sport?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in our early conversations and things, we've talked about boxing, we've talked about other genres under, combat genres from women under the brand. So I'm very excited about that. I think boxing needs someone to come in and really help the female side of the sport. And, I'm up for that job, something I'm very interested in.
More with Shannon Knapp, president of Invicta Fighting Championships, after this. I'm here with Shannon Knapp. She's the president of Invicta Fighting Championships. And Shannon, I want to delve into your background and learn how you got to be the head of a women's fighting league. Prior to commentating and promoting women's mixed martial arts, you were a self-defense instructor.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done a lot of different things. Yeah. I was a Sunday school teacher too. I mean, I've just done a lot of different things. Broadcast is my background, and that's kind of where I started out in the sport. And then I think that quickly, they identified that I had a good rapport with the athletes and, felt like that was, I was definitely important on that side of the fence, we'll call it. So that's, I kind of moved over into that management side. And ever since then, been matchmaking fights, scouting talent, and, being kind of the liaison between the athletes and the companies.
Did you get in fights as a kid?
No, no, but I was different. I mean, I can tell you that, I like combat. I mean, I can remember laying in bed thinking if I go like this, he's going to do that. If I hit him like this, he'll do that kind of thing. So I always was a fan of it, but, not a lot of fighting.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little rural area in Missouri. So, yep, very small town. Very.
And what influenced you to choose the path that you're on?
I think this may sound crazy, but it really, I always enjoyed combat sports. I have always enjoyed them. And really, it came down for me. I can sit and complain on the couch about, this was a long time ago. So, how I felt that things weren't fair for the athletes and this kind of thing. Or I can get up and try to make a difference. And that is really, truly, honestly, what pushed me into this career was being an advocate for the athlete and for the sport. And I
I
like
want to talk
that.
about your fans.
Okay.
Are mixed martial arts fans and wrestling fans the same person?
I think there's a crossover. To what degree, I'm not really sure, but there is some crossover. We've definitely seen that. But I'm sure, as with anything, there are going to be fans that of MMA that aren't fans of wrestling and vice versa. But there is that window of where there is this crossover.
So I understand that MMA is a real sport with real
Yeah.
competitors and judges and rules. But
Yeah.
when I used to watch wrestling with my grandpa, he was really into it and he would like scream and like he took it seriously. And I, even as a kid, like it was so obvious to me that it was fake. And I couldn't quite understand what was going on, like who my grandpa became when he watched wrestling. And I never actually said to him, Grandpa, what are you doing, man? This is fake. I never had that discussion with him. But explain to me, and I don't know if you know, because obviously MMA is so different than wrestling, but do you understand the wrestling fan who kind of is like into it and like screaming and cheering? What's going on there?
I do. I do because just like you, my grandfather always watched the wrestling as well. So, the from the fireman's carry, the full Nelson, all of that. I mean, he watched it all, I watched along with, loved it, loved it. I don't think you could have told him that it wasn't real, you know? And I think that anytime that you can find a way for the fan to really connect in whatever you're doing, I think that's an amazing deal. So, I mean, God bless the wrestling side.
So did our grandpas really think it was real, or were they just suspending their disbelief willingly for the enjoyment of it?
Maybe, but
Who
I
knows,
didn't
right?
dare to tell him it wasn't. And that's all I can say.
But like, what about today? The people watching wrestling, because that's obviously huge. What's bigger, MMA or wrestling?
I can't answer that honestly. To say I think that they both are big in their own way, and they have tons of fans. If you talk to Dana, he's going to tell you it's MMA, and if you talk to Mans, they're going to tell you it's wrestling or Impact or anybody, that you talk to, they're going to tell you, I'm sure that it's that side. So me, I'm kind of in the middle. I like them both. So, but I think there's always room for growth
So,
everywhere.
so you say that, prior to forming your league, it was mostly, hey, let's get some hot girls out there, and that's what it's all about. Let's sell some sex, which makes me think that the consumer is a male audience.
Well, not necessarily. Ours is, I mean, they like to kind of put it in that box of 18, 35-year-old male. Um, when I look around in the arena and some of the fans that we have, I think we have a very diverse crowd. Very, you know, I,
Interesting.
I think, I'm seeing all different age ranges, everything, we have veterans that come to the shows, that absolutely love the women competing, so for me, when I look around, I'm seeing, much the audience, a wider variety in that audience, for sure. We have a
I
much
gotta just
smaller.
throw it out there because I mean, my people are gonna want to know: is
Okay.
MMA a red state sport?
Red State Sport. Um, I, I love MMA. So for me, I think MMA is, I think it's for everybody. I think that, I don't like putting anything in any box. I think that, yeah, I think that MMA, I wouldn't call it that necessarily.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's a question. Would you do a big fight in San Francisco, or would you rather be in Kansas City?
No, I mean, I would do a big fight anywhere. I'm not afraid of wherever that demographic, where that takes us. I'm not afraid of that. I mean, we do travel, we do shows outside of, Kansas City area. California is a hotbed for MMA. It's one of the meccas, when it comes to the amount of athletes that are available in that state and the competitions that, the promotions that are putting on events. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of that at all. What's funny though? I've had commissioners say to me, why don't you do a show there? Which is funny. And I think it's because
in California.
Yeah, but I think it's because we're all women. So, they still try to push us in different areas.
If
So,
you were going to do California, would you do LA? Would you do San Francisco?
Yeah.
Would you do San Diego?
I actually have done a show in each of those places except for San Francisco. With another company, we did San Diego, and then I've done it in LA with Invicta.
And so when you look through the arena, you see as many men as women.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to really, really think about this. It may sway a little heavier on the male side, but it's a very much, it's a very, like I said, there's men, there's women, there's children, there's, very mature adults, in the audience, based on hair color, or whatever you want to say, very mature. Yeah, so I love that fact about it. We're kind of a very fan friendly event, which is great.
Now, obviously, so many of the leagues are covered by the media. Media cover sports. Obviously, mainstream media covering baseball, basketball, to a lesser extent, tennis and golf and some of the smaller sports. When I do a search on Google News for MMA, I see a lot of niche sites, that are MMA specific sites. Talk to me a little bit about your press pool, or rather sort of the people in the media and journalists who cover MMA. Is it mostly people covering that niche specifically, or do you find mainstream media news paying attention to what happens at your fights?
Sometimes, I mean, we're very consistent with, the niche MMA sites. But yeah, we do fall over into other, mainstream media from time to time. I mean, we've definitely, been USA Today, different other outlets. But yeah, I mean, we will find ourselves, ESPN Women, different places like, that.
Did you consider any other options for Invicta, like, building your own digital platform? Or was broadcast really always, where you saw what you saw as the legitimizer for you?
Yeah, definitely, thought about our own platform, definitely as we, branch out and continue to create content and stuff. But, when it first built it, it was all about broadcast. It was definitely built for broadcast. So that was the main focus.
Because you see so many brands now lighting up apps on over the top devices. Any thoughts around, maybe going direct to your audience that way with some sort of a premium app?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of discussions right now, and with Anthem on board, they bring a lot to the table, a lot of new ideas. So I think that as, we roll out more of what's happening, I think you'll see us making some different moves that'll be exciting for fans.
Can you give us can you leak anything for us?
I would, but no, not at this time. But definitely, there are some things that are coming down the pike that are going to be very exciting.
What about pay-per-view? I mean, is that part of your plan moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there will be a point that we do move into that. Not all of the shows, but some of our specialty shows into pay-per-views. So that could, we'll definitely be talking about that maybe later this year.
How would you decide if you're going to tier access and have a free channel where you can watch free women's mixed martial arts versus premium? What would you decide to gate?
So what would differentiate them?
Yeah.
Okay, would be probably the higher level, big title fights and things like that would be, something that we would look at for, that would separate normal cards. This would be like, double header, this kind of thing, where you have a big matchups. That would really be what kind of separated it.
I mean, I would think that the attention of mainstream media around, the build up to a fight would be key in getting there.
Well, yeah, it's definitely one of the pieces of the puzzle that, will push us to getting over the top of where we want to be.
So
So yeah,
how do you leverage public relations and media relations to build excitement for your brand?
I think we just keep coming to the table and bringing them, news that is exciting, and selling them on the idea that, this is something you want to get behind. Trust me, give us 5 minutes of your time. Tune into a show. You tune in, you're going to understand, what it is that we're talking about and what makes it so exciting. These women have been fighting for a long time just for these opportunities. And when they get inside that cage, they come to win. They're great competitors. There's, a lot of camaraderie between the athletes, but it's really, I feel in a lot of ways that they become more connected to what they're doing. And they just, turn out some beautiful performances.
Talk to us a little bit about the global market for your product. South America and Asia have always been, big markets for MMA. Do you see Invicta developing any sort of broadcast partnerships with international media outlets?
Yeah, I do. Definitely we're being approached, continuously approached, and we are working on that right now. We do have big fan viewership in some of those areas from our previous broadcast platform. So, but yeah, I mean, we've got the fan base there, and we're going to look to, for ways to enhance their viewership to make it better for our fans in those locations. And of course, sign more athletes from those areas and build in those markets that way.
Um, do you feel there's a bias against women fighters or those running the other leagues that that they just didn't know the right way to promote them or market them, and that you as a woman leading Invicta can sort of change that or remedy that?
Do I think there's a bias? Absolutely. I mean, I've been witness. I've been in those meetings. There is a bias. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There is definitely a bias. Do I think, as you said, that I can do it better or anything like that? No, I don't really approach it that way. What I do think is that sometimes when you're packaging something, there are different ways to do it. And I think that for me, I've always brought the professional athlete element to it instead of, I call them athletes because I believe that's what they are instead of fighters. And, we just package it a little different. We look for that more of that cinematic, value in, all of the footage and things that we do. And I just think it keeps it a little more elevated and a little more classier, I guess, in a way. If that makes any sense.
We're talking about women's
classy.
we're talking about women's mixed martial arts with Shannon Knapp. She's the president of Invicta Fighting Championships. Stay with us. I'm here with Shannon Knapp. She's the president of Invicta Fighting Championships. We're talking about women's mixed martial arts. Let's talk a little bit about running a professional sports league in a constantly expanding world of digital media platforms and merging media companies. I mean, there's so many different directions you could go right now. No one really knows which will be the dominant media channel moving forward. We're sort of moving away from broadcasting cable over to streaming on demand and over the top. One media partnership can open up others across different platforms. How do you see Invicta growing in this decade?
One of the things I like about where Invicta sits is that, especially in, we'll call it the new age, with all the different platforms that are available in the streaming services. This is where we were born and raised. I mean, this is where we've lived, since the inception of Invicta. So I always feel like we come into the space with, a better footing than some. as far as that goes. We're tried and true, to getting those numbers and being able to uh, have the participation of people watching the events. This is where we live. So for us, it's not as different. And I think that as we move through with the new partnership and the avenues and the available relationships that they have, it will open up even more doors. So if that makes sense, I mean, that's kind of why I feel that we set in a better position than most moving over, coming off broadcast television.
When you think about the other women's leagues that are out there, the WNBA, the NWSL, the Pro Women's Soccer League, how is Invicta different than those two?
How are we different? I don't, how are we, I don't really know that I would characterize anything that we're different. I think we're both doing the best, we're all doing the best that we can to showcase and highlight the talent that we're representing, in these different sports. I don't, so when I look over, I'm not looking for differences. I'm looking, can I learn anything? Can I learn something that they're doing that maybe I'm not, that's going to help on this side? So I've never really looked at it like we're different. I think we're all fighting the good fight, and I think that's the most important part, is that, we're trying to create these scenarios and these platforms and these, where these women can compete, get the respect that they deserve, and build their brands and give back in that way. So I feel like we're all on the same team. We're tag team partners. If I can learn anything, I'm in. Anything that helps on this side.
The women's sporting league that I think probably you're closest to would be the WTA, because women's tennis is all about the individual, and they bring their own teams to the table, and it's so personality driven. It's so much about these sort of Serena and these different characters. Obviously hugely global sport because competitors coming from all over the world, but that sport really is driven by these big stars, these big name stars. So talk to us about the women fighters in your league. Who are the big name stars that really have the power to carry you to the next level?
Well, one of the things, and that is true, a lot of times it is based on an individual. One of the things that I always try to do here at Invicta is, I treat everyone the same, give everyone the same opportunities. And you are going to have those athletes that are just, you put a camera in front of them, they're much more personable, and they're going to bring something more to the table. But when it comes to the promotion side of it, we are all in on everybody. So in other words, if you have a matchup that maybe someone is more popular than the other opponent, we don't put all of our focus on the more popular one. We're spreading that wealth, but you are going to have those athletes that, will help propel and take you. I mean, and I try not to name them. And the only reason I do that is for the fact that I don't like to plant seeds in anybody's mind that anybody is more important than the next athlete. So I that's why I'll dance around that question, is because, but we do have stars. We have stars that I think are, bring a lot to the table. And sometimes it's just because they're more vocal and people want, they want to hear what you've got to say. But
for
we do
Invicta,
work with them.
For Invicta 44, what's the size of the purse?
And what is like the biggest size of the purse?
Well, what is, if whoever wins, how much do they make?
Well, that varies too. That varies, in their contracts, which, of course are confidential, but, I mean, they're making good money, for where they are at the level of what their talent and their records. So we're very competitive in that aspect.
Because obviously, to be a tennis player, for some of these tennis players who are big names, if they don't make the quarters, they don't break even, because they've got to bring their teams, they've got to pay for everybody, they need special food, they need all the things they need to be competitive. It's going to be the same for a female mixed martial arts artist. So I just wonder, is there enough money there for them to be able to do all that and hire the PR and promotion they need to build their own name so that they can carry the league to the next level?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a legit question. So yeah, I mean, they have expenses too. And one of the things that we do is, like I said, I can't really talk about their purse because it is confidential, but we also do a tournament show. And in that tournament, the athletes can make up to $25,000. So that'll give you some type of a range. But yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for ways to put more money back into the athlete's pocket and help them build brands where they can monetize that as well underneath ours. So yeah, I mean, you're always doing, trying to help educate and help move them along.
When you say that WWE sold for $4 billion to William and Morris, is the purse money for those fights published?
They used to be, and it's actually not WWE, it's UFC. Used to, but I don't think they do that anymore. And it's really wasn't the company, it would be the commission would release that information. So yeah, because I mean, I don't think that the organization itself did. It was the commission.
Because in boxing, they would use that to promote the fight.
Yeah.
They would say, so he agreed to X million dollars this fight. So
Yeah.
I would think that if you had that ability to do the same thing.
Well, it's definitely a big pay discrepancy in MMA and boxing. That much I will tell you, especially in the higher levels. I think you read that all the time, in MMA, that some of the more higher paid, elevated male athletes talk about what the male athletes make in boxing. So I think that there is a big difference.
Well, do you see changing that as an opportunity to grow the league? I mean, obviously, everyone
I'd like
wants
to change it, of course. I'd like to change it, but yeah, I'd love to see athletes make more money. I mean, it's a tough gig. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, yeah, you're all in. I mean, you live it, you breathe it. Yeah, I'd love to see athletes make more money. In order for athletes to make more money, we have to bring more awareness to the sport to elevate, where more, funds come into the sport so we can distribute those. I think Invicta does a very good job of the distribution of what we make and where that money goes and how it finds into our.
So how will you promote Invicta to bring in more fans so that they can make more money?
That's what we're working on. One of the things, as we said, being able to see Invicta now on multiple platforms, we're not behind a paywall anymore. We have a lot of other projects that we're working on that I can't talk about right now, but there are a lot of things in the works that are, I mean, that's our focus. Our focus is to get more exposure, elevate the brand, which translates down to more for our athletes as well.
Now, you launched the Strikeforce Grand Prix, which was a huge success for women's MMA. Unfortunately, it was so successful that it actually worked against you when the UFC bought Strikeforce for $40 million to own the competition. What happened?
Okay, well, that was men. That's when I was on the male side of the sport. So yeah, we built the heavyweight tournament, and then all of a sudden it miraculously got sold. There's this old saying in fight sports that's called "He who has the heavyweights wins." And, I always felt like that was a time in my career that I'd be very proud of, that we built an amazing heavyweight division. I mean, we outbuilt the UFC 100%. And that's a tough gig. That's not an easy task. But yeah, it was based on men.
And then you turned down a job offer with the UFC after that, right?
Yeah, got a lot of history. I mean, I'm a fan of the UFC. I've worked with them, known them, worked for them over the years. So, I don't have any ill will towards them. With Invicta, we just came to this impasse where kind of outgrew each other. We had different ideas of what Invicta could be or should be. And that's kind of where, then I went out on my own and aligned with Anthem. And so now there's a new chapter to the book, right?
Shannon Knapp, president of Invicta Fighting Championships. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.